In today's video, I'm going to be looking at the song Golden Years by David Bowie. It's a fantastic song from a guitar perspective. It's a really nice rhythm guitar workout. We've got some funky riffs, we've got some triad-based rhythm guitar hooks and parts. Really fun one to play. I'm going to begin by playing a bit of it for you now, and then I'll break down what's going on. So over the past week or so, I've been reading this book, David Bowie and the Search for Life, Death and God, which sounds quite heavy, but actually it's a really fun and interesting read. And it kind of tells the story of Bowie's life and music, but through the lens of spirituality and religion, which was quite an abiding interest of Bowie's, and it crops up all the time in his music. And reading this book has sent me back to the music, and I've been revisiting some of the old classics and also discovering some stuff which I'd not really heard before. The Buddha of Suburbia record, for example, which I was aware of but never listened to properly, which is actually a really interesting listen. And I was listening to Station to Station, which is amongst my favourite Bowie albums, and it's this record over here, which the cover of this is a still from the Nicholas Roeg film Man Who Fell to Earth, which is brilliant. And when is this from? 1976. And I was just listening to this, and the track Golden Years, it's the second track on this album, just struck me that this would make a good YouTube guitar tutorial. And at this particular period, Bowie was working with two guitar players. So Carlos Alomar, who was with Bowie for a long period, I think primarily serving as a rhythm guitar player, and then there was kind of a rotating cast of different lead guitar players. And on Station to Station, he was joined by Earl Slick, and some really nice interplay between the two guitar players on this song and across the entire album. And I guess Alomar came more from a kind of soul funk type background, whereas Earl Slick was much more of a kind of rock and roller. Anyway, shall we get on with this, and I'll discuss what's going on with these guitar parts. Let's go. Now, on the recording, we've got the two guitar players panned hard left and right, which is convenient if you're trying to hear exactly what's going on. And I'm not exactly sure who is in which speaker. I'm going to say that Earl Slick is in the right-hand speaker playing the main kind of funky riff, and then we've got Carlos Alomar over in the other speaker playing this more kind of strummed rhythm guitar part with this kind of phaser sound that you can hear. I'm not 100% certain about that, but that's my feeling. And I want to start with that main funky riff you can hear right at the top of the song. And really it's just based on two chords, and the majority of the song is just this two chord kind of soul funk kind of jam, and it's really just going between an F sharp and an E. So you might like to think about these chord shapes to begin with. So we've just got an F sharp major played like this. This is just at the 2nd fret, 6-string root bar chord, then going down to an open E chord. We got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And we're changing to that E chord on the push, so it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. So if you take away kind of the intricacies of these funky riffs, that's kind of the underlying harmony for the verse sections of the tune. And I suppose that the F sharp, that's our home chord, that's the 1 chord. Then we're going down to the flat 7 chord. So it's got that kind of Mixolydian feeling. If you watched my video on the Mixolydian mode, one of the harmonic things to look out for is when you've got your home chord and then another major chord 2 frets below, and that's almost always a kind of giveaway that it's a Mixolydian flavoured tune, and that's very much what this tune is, at least in the verse sections. Then it goes somewhere a little bit different and unexpected during the choruses. But Earl Slick is not just strumming through those 2 chords, he's come up with a much more kind of interesting and inventive funky part, and that's the part that goes like this. It's a great little part that is based on those 2 chords. So we're starting on this F sharp chord, and it's setting up this kind of funky 16th note rhythm. So for most of this riff, you're just going to want to keep feeling that rhythm in your strumming hand. It's that sort of, that kind of feeling. If you want to count out 16th notes, the usual way to do it is just to say 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. It's just a way of vocalizing or verbalizing those subdivisions. So each beat is divided up into 4 subdivisions: 1, 2, 3, 4. So you try and keep feeling that in your strumming hand as we learn this riff. And we're going to begin like this. So we've got actually a little hammer on into that F sharp chord. So I'm just playing on the lower strings in this chord, lifting up my first finger and then hammering down, and a few more strums, and then we're changing to the E chord again, really just playing the lower strings, or maybe just the lowest note in that chord. And then we've got this little single note fill. It's just a hammer on open 5th string to the 2nd fret, and then the open 4th string. And then we're back to some more of this, and then we've just got these little groups of 3 notes. So hammer on from 4 to 6 on the A string, and then catching the 4th fret on the 4th string, and then just moving that down 2 frets. And that's the the opening iteration of this riff. Just go round that, and then when the band kicks in properly, there are some variations. So rather than always doing that most of the time, he now seems to go going up a little bit higher. So it's that same move, but we're taking it over to the G and D strings. So we now got the hammer on the D string, and then catching that B note, that's the 4th fret, on the 3rd string, and then moving that across onto the next pair of strings. And often when he's playing it there, you're not really hearing that note either. It's more maybe just repeating that 6th fret if you want to get nerdy and listen to the details of it. So that's the basics of this riff, and just in terms of the notes, there's nothing too difficult there. But for me, this is actually a really tricky riff to get right, and to get right rhythmically. The rhythm is the key here, and there are lots of little sort of 16th note accents and syncopations in there that can really trip you up if you're not careful. And you may be someone who can just pick up these kind of funky rhythms just by listening, which is absolutely great. But for those of you who struggle a bit with this kind of thing, I'm just going to break down this riff in a little bit of rhythmic detail, and we're going to count it out properly. So say if you don't struggle with this kind of thing, you might want to fast forward the next 5 minutes of the video, but for a lot of you, I hope this is going to be useful. And we could just break this riff down into sections and count it out carefully. So let's just begin with the first couple of beats of the riff, so maybe just this. So say hammering into that F sharp chord, and the count here is 1 E and a 2 and. So we're starting off with 16th notes. 1 E is where we're hammering down, and 2. Then there's a little rest, and we're changing to that E chord on the and of 2. So 1 E and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 3. So you might just work on that. Just get that flowing. Maybe get the metronome out. Just 2, 3, 4. Really good little rhythmic exercise. Notice I'm just playing on the lower strings there. Sometimes it's mostly on the 6th string. Sometimes I'm coming over onto the other strings as well. So that's something that you can vary, but the rhythm is kind of fixed. So that's the first bit of the riff. Next we've got this little hammer on and open D string, and this is the trickiest bit rhythmically, I think. So we've got, so that hammer on is coming on the and of 3. It's 1 and 2 and 3, and that D string note is coming on the E of 4. If you're thinking 4 E and we're playing on the E, so it's 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E. So it's 3 E and 4 E. You can even just isolate that bit if you need to. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Really quite tricky, that bit rhythmically. That was something that when I first started practicing this riff, I wasn't quite getting that right. I was sort of delaying those 16th notes slightly, and it wasn't feeling right. So I did actually have to think about, you know, exactly where I was placing those notes. So if we put the first and second parts of that riff together, it sounds like this. We've got 2, 3, 4. So just work on that slowly. Really try and get it absolutely right. It's a great rhythmic exercise to work on. Then you can move on to the second half of the riff, which sounds like this. So this starts off in exactly the same way. 1 E and there's a bit of an accent on beat 2 where we're bringing in more of this F sharp chord. So, and then the rest of it's quite straightforward. We've just got these little 3-note groupings, but they're played right on the beat. So it's beats 3 and 4. It's 3 E and 4 E and. So the second half of the riff is 1 E and 2, 3 and 4 E and. Or so now I can just put the whole thing together slowly. So we've got, in fact, I am going to get my metronome out just to sort of really push home this point about the rhythm. And I think the original recording is round about 106, 107 BPM. It actually starts slower and then it speeds up as the track progresses. But I'm going to go quite a bit more slowly than that to begin with. So maybe we'll just take it down to 75 BPM just as a practice tempo, and then I'll play this riff in time for you. Just turn that up a little bit. So that's the beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you want to feel those 16th note subdivisions, 2 and a 3 and a 4 and then I'm going to try plugging in the riff. So that's such a fantastic rhythmic workout, just working on those 16th note subdivisions, syncopations. You know, of course, when you actually play this stuff and perform it, you don't want to be thinking about 1 eander, 2 eander and all of that stuff. But to get to that stage, you might actually have to do this kind of rhythmic homework And then you get to the point where you just internalize it and you feel it and you don't have to count it out any longer. That riff is actually the bulk of the tune, just that funky kind of 2-chord jam. But there is a little chorus section as well. And before we get to the chorus section, there's just a little break from the riff. So it goes like this. We've got... So we just got a departure from that riff, and we're just playing a D chord to a B minor chord. So very simple. And just letting those chords hang. We're actually changing to the B minor on the push. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and then back to the riff. And then that happens a second time, but it kind of evolves into more of a proper chorus. It starts in exactly the same way. But then we're going G to C, and then A. I'm playing A to A sharp diminished 7 here. I listen quite closely to the recording to try and determine this chord. It is a little bit hard to hear it. It does sound like maybe the two guitar players are playing slightly different things. The bass is at this point, I think, playing a D flat, but I think the guitar is playing this diminished sound. It certainly sounds good to me, which is, in fact, if you're coming from an A chord like this, you're really just raising the root up in that A chord. So I'm playing the first fret, it's A sharp on the 5th string, and then 2 on the D. I've actually got an open 3rd string, 2 on the B, and open top string. So A sharp diminished 7. It's kind of a connecting chord, really. We're going from A to that A sharp diminished. Then that's leading us to a B minor. So just strumming the open 6th string and then just strumming on this chord here. It's E7 sharp 9, the so-called Hendrix chord. So it's 7, 6, 7, and then 8. Just giving that a strum, which there's a little break then at the end of the chorus. So if I'll put all of that chorus part together in time, then it's 3, 4. And that, I think, about covers all of the Earl Slick parts in this tune. There are, of course, little variations and nuances that you can hear throughout the tune, but those are the basic riffs. Let's turn our attention to the left-hand speaker and take a look at what's going on there then. And I reckon this is probably played by Carlos Alomar, but I'm not 100% certain with that. And we've got lots of triads happening here. So I told you guys triads were going to come in handy, and it's actually nice to find a song which has got a really solid example of some of these triads actually being used in a cool piece of music. And during the verses, this is what's happening. So when Earl Slick is playing that main funky riff, this is what's going on in the other guitar part. And it's just a pair of triads outlining the basic harmonies. So remember, it was F sharp going to E, and here we're just finding those chords in triad form. So we're starting here 8 on the D, and then we've got 6 and 7. So that's an F sharp major triad in the first inversion. So the root note here is actually on top. That's our F sharp. Really useful little shape to know. And then we're just moving that down 2 frets. And this is an E major triad in the first inversion. And we're just going back and forth between those two shapes, played in a loose kind of 16th note rhythm. So keeping your strumming hand moving in that 16th note kind of a fashion. Maybe sliding into that first shape. And you can also include this little embellishment. So when you're on this E triad, you can just reach out with your pinky and grab this F sharp note, which works as a really nice extra flavour. So I'm kind of pulling off with my little finger there as well. Then for the bit where it goes from D to B minor, I'm playing this in the second guitar part. This is what I think I'm hearing, but I may have just kind of extrapolated this from what I can very faintly hear and kind of made it up. But I think this sounds nice and it works. So I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm just playing, again, it's a triad shape that I'm playing here. Over both the D and the B minor chords, I'm playing this shape. So it's 7 on the D, G and B. So it's a D major triad, but that triad also forms part of a B minor 7 chord, so it actually works over both the D and the B minor chords. So I'm just strumming that. Then I've got a little pentatonic single note riff, so I'm just pulling off from 10 to 7 on the B, 9 to 7 on the G, and then 9 on the D, back to 7 on the G. So that's the little riff. 1, 2. And then back to the F sharp to E. Then for the chorus part, I'm playing this. It starts off in the same way. We've got that same riff played twice. Then I decided to do this. Again, this might be totally made up, but I think it sounds good to me. And I decided to go with some sixths here. So 12th fret on the D and B, moving that down. Then this little kind of soul hammer on, so 7 and 8 on the G and B, hammering down to the 9th fret on the G. Then going to this little shape here, so 9, 8 and 9 on the top 3 strings, and it's A7, and it also works for that A sharp diminished as well, so you can just hang around on that little shape. And then a B minor, low E, and then once again this 7 sharp 9 chord. So in the other guitar part we were playing it here. This is exactly the same chord but taken up an octave. So now we've got 14, 13, 15 and 15. So still E7 sharp 9, and we're just playing that kind of rhythm. So all of the chorus just one more time. And there are a couple of other little riffs which I'm going to talk about as well. Firstly, at the end of the first chorus, there's this great little hook which sounds like this. And once again, this is all triad based. So we're starting with this shape here. It's the same shape we had earlier, but now we've got 13, 11, and 12. This is a B major, and then going down to the 11th fret, this is F sharp, but now we're in a different inversion. So Carlos Alomar obviously knew his triad inversions. So if you're not familiar with this stuff, you might like to check out my wonderful triads course where I take you through all of this stuff in a lot of detail. But you can kind of see in this tune how useful it is to have this kind of in-depth triad knowledge. So here we're going from B in the first inversion, F sharp in the second inversion, then just moving that down 2 frets. This is an E triad. So we've got this, that's kind of the rhythm. And that funky sort of syncopation happening here as well. And you can just hear a little fill that he's playing on the lower strings, this kind of soul Hendrixy type fill. You can see this is coming out of the E major pentatonic scale, and we're just hammering on with those double stops on the D and A, or maybe over onto the G and D strings as well. So you can vary those little fills, just to play around with that idea. Then there's one other riff which I will mention. I think this comes after the second chorus. I might be wrong, but it's a great riff. Only happens once, and it sounds like this. More triads, and we're starting here with F sharp triad in the second inversion, coming down to F sharp in the first inversion. So he knows his inversions. Both of these are F sharp, but we're rejigging, reordering the notes, and then we're switching to the E triad. That's in the second inversion, and then taking that shape down to the first inversion. So and then back to the E again. So it's F sharp, E, E, and E again. So just those two chords. It's just mashing the basic riff, but just making it interesting by switching shapes. And all played with this lovely syncopated rhythm. And I think that's about it. There might well be a few other little variations or fills that you can hear in there if you want to listen really closely, but I think that about covers all of the main riffs and guitar parts. Let's talk about gear then, and I can find no definite information about exactly what was used on the original recordings, and maybe nobody can remember. I think the station-to-station sessions were famously quite wild, and I think Bowie himself said that he's got no recollection whatsoever of making the album. But I can tell you what I'm using today. So for the second guitar parts, I was using my Telecaster into the Princeton, and I was using my Phase 90. So there's obviously some kind of modulation on that guitar sound. It sounds a lot like a phaser to me. I don't know if it was a Phase 90 or not, but were the Phase 90s around in the mid-70s? I guess they probably were. I don't know the dates, but it sounds good to me. So this is just a I don't know when this Phase 90 is from. I've had it for years, probably since the 1990s, and I've just got that set at quite a slow speed, and that works well for the second guitar part. So and then for the main guitar part, if I just grab it, I was using my Vox Virage, which I thought worked well for the main funky riff. It sounds like on the original recording it's humbuckers, and the pickups on this guitar are actually quite interesting. They kind of do humbucker, but then they've got a couple of other modes where you've got kind of a single coil and then a fat single coil kind of P90-ish sound. So I think I was in humbucker mode when I was playing the main riff, once again going into the Princeton, and I had a bit of overdrive coming from the small speaker overdrive from Great Eastern Effects. This is a really great sounding pedal, and as the name would suggest, it's designed to simulate the sound of a small amp, kind of driven hard in a kind of recording studio situation. It's got a really unique quality to the overdrive with this pedal. I just thought it worked well for this particular riff. So let me just give you a quick demo of that sound. Alright, that's it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. There is plenty more Bowie content elsewhere on this channel. If you do a little search, you should be able to locate the lessons. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what I've looked at, but I know that I've looked at a few tracks from the Mick Ronson period. I think I've looked at Sound and Vision as well a while back. So check those out if you're interested. Remember, tab and backing track for this lesson will be available on the Patreon page. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you next time.